But is the government interested in your
I don't know, but why should they see at all?
Yeah, correct. The question is a very important question.
It's like okay, you can cut it. It's like an underwear. You have to wear it, but don't show it to everybody. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Sir, तुम्ही joke मारा. Hi guys, welcome to the 4th episode of Free Session with Galgal. Today is a very special episode because we have our Galgal team with us. We have Makarand sir and we have Miss Arun.
Hi.
So guys, do you want to introduce yourselves to the crowd?
Arun,
Yeah,
you go first.
thanks Darshan and Harsh. Very excited to be on this podcast. My name is Arun Iyer. I am the co-founder at Galgal and also the Chief Product Officer based in Pune. Very glad to be with you guys.
Great. Max sir?
And my name is Makarand Gadre. They call me Mac, so Mac is good. And I'm a software engineer for last 1985, so 38 years
Wow.
in the field. So just software. I'm an engineer, so and likely to remain so.
This is a very modest introduction, guys, because like everything related to Galgal's tech is handled by Arun and Maxer. So whatever you see that's tech related on our app, the back end, the front end, everything's handled by Arun and Maxer. They are the captains.
We have some exciting topics to be discussed today, so let's get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to start off with like Maxer's journey, like
Yeah.
because you mentioned like 35 years, right? of
38. Okay.
38 years of
Okay.
experience. So I would like to start off with, sir, like 38 years ago, like how did the whole IT landscape in this country look like? Because now you are seeing digital India everywhere. But was India really that digital back in the day?
No, really speaking, I got my first computer in 1985 when my father was structural designer and I'm a civil engineer by education. And my father told me, it seems that you can do programming. And let's do some programming for designing the beams and columns of a building. And let's buy a computer for my father's firm. So we bought the computer. It was a PC with 2 floppies, 640 kilobyte RAM,
Okay.
and a monochrome monitor. Okay. And it was 90,000 rupees in those days.
Okay. Which is a lot of money.
A huge amount. Think
Huge.
of it like multiply by at least 30 now
Yeah.
Wow.
compared to the cost of dosa in Vaishali from 1 rupee to 90 rupees or whatever at least.
Would you
So-
have to import it or?
No, HCL just started selling computers in India, 85. So when I got it, and then I did programming for 1.5 years, then my father passed away in a car accident.
Oh,
And so of course, I being 25-year-old and my brother being 20, nobody would trust us with structural designing jobs anymore. And they wanted
Experience.
sir to do the designing. So
Right.
we lost that. But then luckily we had some buffer. So I started, I like this, let me concentrate on that. And I did that. And then started writing programs for textile designing. That's when I started my business in Mumbai. I used to do textile designing of a weave of a cloth,
Okay.
which thread goes down, which thread goes up, those kind of things.
Okay.
That I did for 3-4 years. And then I thought of an idea of doing software export. And then I went to Seattle, where my uncle lived. He said, okay, I'll introduce you to some people in Seattle. There is this company called as Microsoft. And there are 2-3 other small companies there. We should talk and see if you can do software export. We talked to them and they said, we like the idea of offshore development. How are you going to send us the data, code? Because the internet didn't exist. Are you going to send us floppies by email?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was essentially a non-starter. But then Microsoft offered me a job there.
Okay.
And then I stuck with them 20 years.
Wow.
Wow.
So when I was there, it was Windows 3.1 those days and Excel 4 for Macintosh. Then I moved on to, then Windows 95 came, Windows 98 came. Then I went to Hyderabad for setting up the Hyderabad Dev Center of Microsoft. 9 managers were sent there. So we did it for 3.5-4 years. Then I went back to Microsoft and continued my journey until I was retired as an architect in Microsoft.
Amazing.
So, like the programs you use daily, Excel, for example. If you use Excel, you're my customer. Because I was in the first dev team of Excel way back in 1992, 1993. If you use Windows, if you type anything in Windows, in any language other than English, is my code you're running. So,
Amazing.
I like my customers had 200 million customers. That's not bad.
No, that's amazing how many lives you have touched, sir. But like going back to your roots, if you like remember like back in the day when you had to like probably start your journey in this particular industry, IT. Right now it's a very cool sort of industry to work in. Everyone is like, okay, मैं IT industry में काम कर रहा हूँ, अच्छा जा बेटा. लेकिन back in the day when you took that leap that no, I want to deep dive into this particular industry, was it very cool back in the day, or did it take a lot of convincing?
It was people wanted to worry about, am I going to lose a manual job because of this? And so there were actually, if you remember in those days, Arun might remember, there were actually protests about computerization in India.
Right.
Okay.
And they were saying, oh, we are going to lose the jobs now. Now we require 20 accounts to do this. Now we can get rid of 18 of them. 2 people can, this computer can do this. That's not good.
Right.
And that was one.
So ironically, the same thought process is coming now,
Yeah,
right? When they talk about AI and
ChatGPT and all that
ChatGPT. But that was he's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just getting into college in 92, that was the time. Right, and similar to Mac, our college had just 3 computers.
Okay.
And incidentally, in the final year project, one of our batchmates, they were doing a project on antivirus. So
Okay.
all the computers were virus infected because they had put virus in. So that's how we learned computers. So yesterday, Mac was telling us, right? He tried to get a IEEE membership, and they were not willing to give him because he doesn't have a qualification in computers. But there can be more person more qualified than Mac when it comes to
So
technology.
somebody proposed me for a fellowship of IEEE. It's like considered the highest honor for IEEE. So I'm already a senior member. I said, what are your degrees? I said, no, none. I did a BSc mathematics and a civil engineering degree. But then you must have a computer science degree. I said, no, I don't have one. I used to give degrees to other people, but I don't have one myself. What do you mean you used to give degrees? Well, there was a Microsoft University. We used to teach people, and I used to teach there and say, okay, you get a degree, BS Com Sci, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Do you have one? No, nothing. They said, okay, we're not going to take it. I said, okay, never mind. Bye.
That's like a perfect example of
What
like
can
the
you do?
Indian jugadu mindset. Like, it's not about your book knowledge. It's about like, how you can apply real life knowledge into your work and actually get things done. And
No, realistically, there was no degree in those days.
Okay.
When I passed 81 BSc Mathematics, the computer science department didn't exist. In the
Okay.
University of Pune, Mumbai. IIT had a little department, but then they were not giving ComSci degree. It didn't exist in those days. ComSci started degrees in around 88, 89.
I was also in NIT Surat. I was the second batch
okay.
Right.
of computer science, right? And ironically, again, in my case, I did my computer science, but I got into finance. My first job was in finance.
Okay.
And then Mac talked about the first wave. He was probably the first wave of technology just coming into India.
Yeah.
By the time I had graduated, and in around 98 was the second wave, which was initiated by Y2K. Right?
Okay.
A lot of people now would not know, but at that time it was like the biggest Armageddon scenario that, hey, the whole world is going to drop, airplanes are going to drop down because the
That was true.
Y2K problem will hit.
It's like that 2012 movie that came, like, similar sort of thing. Well, I think
Yeah,
it was
well,
so
it
much
was like
bigger.
the problem was very simple, right? That computers couldn't handle 2000, right? The year it had only 2 digits, so
Okay.
97, 98, 99, it would have gone back to 00.
Okay.
So what is 00?
Okay.
Right? So just to solve that problem, millions and millions of dollars were spent, and India rode that wave. Right? A lot of the services companies, especially I was in TCS at that time.
TCS, Infosys, Wipro.
Infosys, yeah, they all set up offshore that you talked about, right? How the Indian IT industry evolved. That's where a lot of the offshore-based services industry really grew.
Okay. Very
Right.
interesting.
And in hindsight, you may say that Y2K, nothing happened. But nothing happened because there was this whole workforce in,
Yes.
solving all these problems. Right?
Got
None
it.
of the banking systems failed. None of the critical operational systems failed because a lot of effort had gone in fixing that problem. Very simple problem, but that was the impact of that problem.
And the fundamental reason behind Y2K problem was that we had to fight. Nowadays, people don't care. Oh, I've got 4 gig memory. I was talking about 640 kilobyte of memory for the whole computer. You have to run Excel and Windows in the same machine. So you're looking at trying now. We used to call it fight for every byte.
Mm.
Okay, and that's when we used to say, "Oh, year, right? We don't need a 1900 everywhere. Just put the 2 digits. We'll figure it out. It's 1900." And that's not the problem, because this started in 1971 when IBM made the first machines. They said, "Okay, let's just go 2 numbers is good enough." Right? So 7 up went well. Then in 95, 96, people started realizing, you know what? My annuity is a 7-year fixed deposit maturing is going to go to 0-1. What is 0-1? Minus 99 years. And then this.
So there was panic all around. No, but
it was a panic.
It was panic, but then they planned it. I mean, there was a huge
planned.
amount of money and effort spent.
right. Like I read one stat as well where it said that during the 1990s, the entire industry's bandwidth can be compared to the same bandwidth that a teenager uses over a weekend now.
Totally agreed.
Yeah.
Totally.
But when you were studying like in NIT, and since you were the second batch, was how were the teachers like? I mean, because if this was such an experimental sort of a subject back in the day, because nobody knew how this was going to evolve, what was the quality of education back in the day?
No, it was good. See, because computer science, now the computer science field also has evolved, right? Now people talk of data sciences, AI, those are the subjects. But at that time, the basics were electrical and electronics. You start with those. Then you add a few computer algorithms, data structures. They're very logical subjects. Nobody taught, I will teach you how to do C programming or Java programming. You taught the basics of programming, and then as you got opportunities to work in small projects, you picked up a language, you learned it, and then you implement, right? So Mac, being a teacher himself, right, he always tells that today's people don't know the underlying basics of how computer programming happens, because so many layers have been built over the years that you just say, write a command and 100 things happen for you. But when we were learning, we were told to go to the lowermost, how to do a sort algorithm. Nobody cares how the sort algorithm works today. So that is where that was the quality of the education. It was focusing on the basics,
on the roots,
right?
And now, what would be your comment on like coders using AI tools to write an entire code structure? Like,
no, it is fine, because it makes it efficient for them, right? And at the end, you have to get the task done. But very few people, right, you see, who go beyond that code to really understand how it is done, right? And that skill comes in play when something doesn't work, when you have to debug, or when you need to design something from scratch, right? Unless you have that knowledge, you cannot do it. You can just be a programmer, write some code and write some fancy stuff, and that will work. Yeah. But if you are to become an engineer, like Max says, he's been like 35 years and a software engineer. If you have to have that kind of career where your core is about building and designing systems, you need to have that underlying knowledge.
I'm just starstruck that the person who was involved in the Excel, PowerPoint days is sitting here with us.
Yeah.
And I just had a question, so that every industry uses this product.
Yeah.
Every industry, right? From a restaurant owner to...
Yeah, Excel is
it's like the most go-to tool, right? What was like the work stress and how did you all manage that whole environment, and that when you all reach from the idea validation to the, say, MVP stage, like minimum viable product, and then you guys finally launched it.
Right.
Any insights you would like to share during those days?
35 years. Who cares now? So whatever I tell. So, okay. Think about it that, let's take the example of Excel, for example.
Yeah.
What was the first ever spreadsheet in the world? Boeing Calc. Boeing made it for their own internal use, that they could do electronic calculations where one cell changes and the result is updated in the other cells.
Okay.
Then who stole it? Lotus, VisiCalc, SuperCalc. 3 people stole it, and Microsoft stole it. That idea. Well, stealing, copying, whatever you call it. And then said, okay, let's do it. What was the big machine in those days? Apple 4 or Apple 3. Lisa, no, Lisa ke
Mm.
pehle
Mm.
is before Lisa. So that one. So that was the target. And then Microsoft came with Windows 3.1. And in those days, and they said, okay, let's do it on Windows 3.1 and Macintosh at the same time. So two kinds of PCs existed. One was a Macintosh World, Steve Jobs' company. Second was IBM World, IBM PC. Okay, but IBM had an open license. That means their design was not sealed like Macintosh design. So Hewlett Packard, Digital, Compaq,
All of them.
many companies, NEC, Fujitsu, all these companies did the something same because Intel chips was not proprietary. It was self 8088 chip. Everybody could buy it.
Okay.
So they wrote all this. So this infrastructure grew, and Microsoft sold DOS to them, DOS, disk operating
This
system.
operating system.
Yeah, and so this became a viable competitor to Macintosh.
Okay.
Okay, because they're cheap.
Okay.
Then they evolved to let's go 32-bit processing. Then Windows 95 came, and that's when IBM started OS2. There was another what do you call it operating system, which was pretty cool actually. I liked it. Microsoft developed it for IBM.
I think it was OS2.
OS2, yes.
Yeah.
I used to work on that. It was fun.
Okay.
Nice operating system. But anyway, then they had the who competes whom. So as a vendor doing its own product for IBM, who has OS2, they are doing Windows 95. And then the market showed that OS2 just went down, died. Windows 95 went up. It was a one big spike in Microsoft customer acquisition. And then Windows 98, it went through the roof. And then that's when you have called that 95% of the OS market in PC world. Now they are 100% OS market. Well, you can count Ubuntu to a little bit, but
Yeah.
in the PC, Intel-based PC world, 95, 99% market.
How,
300 million customers.
so like if you have to like describe your experience, because when the company is seeing massive growth, right, during those
Yes,
years.
amazing growth.
So like the corporate environment also might be changing very
Yes.
drastically when you're seeing after 3 years the company has reached a certain market cap, and then after 5 years it has reached another league altogether. So how did it change? And was it getting very
You see,
competitive for?
for me as a software engineer, it did not matter much, realistically speaking, because our executives, Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer in those days, and there were Kurt Deblin, all these guys were very good managers.
Okay.
At a company level. Bill Gates was also a nuts and bolts guy himself, and he used to do our code reviews in those days. He used to be literally like 1,000, 2,000 people company, so everybody knew everybody kind of thing.
Did you meet him,
Of
Bill
course,
Gates?
many times.
How is Bill Gates like in person?
Very
Like,
sharp.
very
Doesn't
sharp.
talk much. We'll talk about him later. Very sharp person. So, yeah. So he used to do code reviews actually. I would say, "Oh, this code looks wrong to me. Why don't you take a look at it?" But then their management was so good in those days. They said, "Okay, you know what? This company is going too fast, too quickly. We have to split." Windows division went away. Instead of one company, it became like two companies within a company. Windows company, Office company.
Okay.
Okay. And after a few years, they said, you know what? That's not making too much enough of money. How much did you make last year? 70 billion. That's not much. Let's make more. Xbox division started.
Okay.
So now 3 are pumping money in the market. And then there are products which by themselves are $1 billion product. Like my Microsoft project. Nobody is using it, right here?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like one of the niche market project, which is used by all, what do you call it, management firms.
Okay.
Project manager.
Project management. $1 billion product by, but amazing vision.
Yeah.
And execution. And like you asked, how was the workflow? Typically, marketing team would do what we are doing now, like a video recording
Okay.
of users. Where are they spending the most time? Do they click on bold and then they, I don't know, control B? What do they do?
Okay.
Okay, this is the operation they keep on doing. Okay, let's put a button for that. Okay,
Shortcuts.
so that's how that ribbon got evolved.
Interesting.
Okay, developers say, what this is nonsense, because we happy in the command line, black and white interface. We are happy with that. No, but this is what customers want. And what is your customer base? It's not a programmer. It's an accountant, the doctor, the lawyer.
Yeah.
That's the customer base you're targeting. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's how it evolves. So the feature comes into you. Then development team says, oh, it's going to take me 7 man years or whatever, 10 man years. Then the management said, okay, that means 20 man years, okay, because you're going to fail and you're going to. So let's budget for 20 man years. And then here is your team. Delivery date is before Christmas. Bye, see you. You have to show Thanksgiving time, we'll have a thing. Where are we done?
Yeah.
Are we not done? Okay, bye-bye, hired.
Wow. So the whole one of the main pillars of like Microsoft could be said that it was user-focused design. Like it
Yes, because that's the person you want to please at the end of the day.
Correct.
He's going to pay your money.
Got it. And Arun, for you, like you worked at Cognizant, right, which is also like a giant in the whole IT space. So how was your experience in those companies?
Right. So again, as I said, right, the Indian services companies started off with smaller jobs, right? But as they gained more experience about the customer's business, customers started trusting Indian IT software engineers to handle more critical IT jobs, right? So at the end, it was an outsourcing. Like what Mac was doing is for all a product development, right? This for you going to cater to a bunch of customers, right? And who are individuals like you and me. Whereas what Cognizant and other IT services companies did was their customer was a bank or a big retail company, right? Or a Coca-Cola or any of these Walmart. Right? Those were the customers. We didn't care who the end customers was. We were building, maintaining, supporting technology systems that that firm used.
B2B.
Right? B2B, right? So for in that sense, we were only dealing with that customers. But there, the maturity of how much complex work started getting outsourced started increasing over the period of time, right? And that's where, at least where I was when I was in Cognizant, what started off as give me 2 people, 3 people to do this task, saying that, hey, this is like Max said, this is the scope of work I want you to build, right? You tell me how much effort and time it will take, and by when you can deliver. So that same mindset, which was like you giving a target to a product company, became a target to a outsourcing company, which was essentially building a internal product. It was an internal system that the bank would use for its day-to-day operations, and that brought in a lot of sort of discipline in the way Indian IT services had to manage, right? Because you had to find the right resources, you had to keep track of the time, effort, and of course, since a lot of work and since you're doing it remotely, typically in the US, if something was being done by one person at the rate of say $70, $80 per hour, that's what the firm would pay that employee there. Here, you were charging the customer only to $10, $12, $15, right? Which of course increased. And hence you had the luxury of putting more people to do the same task and achieve more throughput. Of course, you had the downside of not knowing as much as the person sitting there would do. So you had to bridge that gap. That's where, like, especially the area where I did most of my work, which is like a business analyst. People who would understand the business would be sent to the US. They would sit with the customers. They would interact with the developers who are based in India, and that's how the work done. Right. So that's how the Indian IT services industry really evolved, right? Doing more complex work, and then of course companies like Infosys and TCS have went ahead and built products, right? Like Finacle is a world-class product today.
Absolutely.
And they got that knowledge by virtue of having done these kind of outsourcing works, understanding how these systems work, and then they could build their own product. Right. Of course, later on, IT service, these banks and other companies started building their own captives in India. Right. So now Captive became a competitor to
TCS or Wipro.
To TCS and Wipro, right? Because now the bank is hiring employees in their own payrolls, and they are, of course, being paid probably more than what a services employee would be paid, but the work is done. But then the volume of work that was being outsourced and the cost benefits that the entities in US got was so huge that Indian IT industry has continued to thrive. It has gone through its cycles, right? Like when 2008 happened, right? When the entire banking industry in US and almost collapsed. Like there was a global depression, everything came down. But then the digital wave sort of picked up, right? After 2010, a lot of entities have gone through the digital transformation. So even though the core systems are still legacy, you have to build that digital layer on top of it so that the same issues, right? Is the end user. How do you make it more convenient for the end user? And that's where the digital transformation has really picked up in the last several years. And now you have the AI revolution. So there have been phases where, right, you go through the ups, troughs and highs, but then there has been a way to come back, because at the end you have the knowledge base here, you have the population, still have the cost benefit, right? It's gone up significantly. So that work still gets outsourced, right? But as opposed to that, what's also interesting is that Indian IT, right? India as an economy itself has grown so much, right? That there is so much work within the country. You don't need to always rely on outsourced work, right? There are so many entities in India, which startups, this entire startup ecosystem, and how things have evolved in India. And that has been the big driver for sort of propelling the IT industry.
The local market itself.
Yeah.
But like, when you get such a huge growth, it's always important to have like a regulatory oversight, because to control that growth, the growth can be nudged into a wrong direction or a good direction. And I feel like NASSCOM during that boom of the IT industry in India played like a very pivotal role. And now with the whole AI revolution, like you mentioned, is there like a body that's governing this?
So India is definitely wants to play a very key role in the AI revolution, right? So even recently, if you look at the G20 that was hosted in India, right? India was had the presidency of the G20. Some of the focus was on digital infrastructure, how India can play an impact, and artificial intelligence and governance. So AI is not an India problem; it's a universal problem, right? There are the benefits of it and there are the downsides of it. So at a UN level, UNESCO level, at that level, there are AI bodies that have been formed, and India has representatives in that body. So their objective is to not only define certain standards and guidelines that as to what is acceptable and what is not, but then also in the case of something going wherewithal, what is the fallback, right? What kind of penalties, what kind of sort of legal framework needs to be put in place.
Establishing guardrails.
Yeah. I mean, of course, it's very difficult to have something which is universally acceptable. At the end, each country's rules and regulations play a role as to what is acceptable in that country or not, right? And that's where India is playing a key role in trying to, because today, most of the AI models, as they say, right, is all come from the big tech.
Yeah.
Right, it's the Google, Facebooks, and all whose models. Some of them have become open source, and then everybody has adopted it. And right, but if you have to make models which are local, right, which are evolving locally, you need to have a local framework of how data will be accessed, shared. Data privacy is a big issue here, right? Because your and my data is being used, maybe, right? So there is a lot of effort going on there as to how personal data privacy and those kind of things are made. So that India's the personal data protection bill that was passed this year only is one of the efforts to make sure that individuals' data is protected, especially in this fast moving AI world.
Yeah, it's great to see like this development in digital India. But another very important factor is that your population, like because we have such a large population, they have to be employed, right? And one of the key drivers of developing any nation is also employing the women workforce. And I feel IT industry plays such a big part in that currently I think 36% of the entire IT workforce is comprised of women, which is amazing, right? So how is it like back in the day? Like, I think because I feel IT sector in general, you don't have to be on site. You could be working remotely. It really helped a lot of women back in the day as well to join the workforce.
Absolutely, right. So I think first of all, it's not a physical task, it's more mental. And at least my experience with women has been that there is a level of discipline and meticulousness in how they approach a problem, right? It's not all over the place. They have a very structured way of doing this, which is very good for development. You need to have a structured approach, right? And also for testing. Mac always talks about it, how women are better testers.
I know, because maybe it's the chromosome thing, I don't know, genetics. They find the hardest bugs to find.
Okay.
It's my experience. And so fault finders, amazing. Women are amazing at fault finders in software.
Yeah. In
Okay.
software.
In software. Okay. And in general, they're also good lateral thinkers. I've come across. They'll find the most innovative solutions. Again, I'm not stereotyping here anyone, but this is my experience so far that if there's a weird problem, I would rather get two women, two, three men, and discuss the problem with them. They'll chew on it for some time, and maybe more than 50% time, the woman will say, okay, let's do it this way, and it may work. And this may prove to be the most optimal way of doing certain things, which I
Okay.
have found is very nice. And I really want 50-50 in that women in the workforce. Today, I see 36% women, you say, but 20% of them are not in the technical job. They are in call center world.
Oh, okay.
Only 15-16% are real women that are working in the software industry.
And that also it will it's dependent on how much of the real technology workforce is coming out of colleges, right? So more women choosing to do engineering or software oriented degrees will make sure that the output into the industry also increases, right?
Right.
See, there was a time where the IT industry was booming so much that it didn't matter whether you are a computer engineer or not. You are an engineer, even a civil engineer,
Join.
you were hired, right? And then you were trained, and because some of the work was not very high end, you had to just do defect fixing support systems, right? So it worked, and it still continues to be there. But I think the real core engineering work, which needs good programming skills, right? I think that is still, as Max says, it's not so much as it should be or it can be, right? So we definitely need a more higher balance in that.
I believe it's a cultural thing also, Even today, after like we're at 2023, we're still, parents are thinking getting my daughter married. That has to change. They have to treat a son like a daughter and daughter like a son. Until this culture, maybe another 100 years, who knows?
I think much lesser than that, sir. I think much lesser than that.
But again, that's how it should be, and if it happens, then it will be great for everybody.
Yeah. Arun, I mean, the world should know that, you're also volunteering in iSpirit, and it's been 2 years or 1 year? 1 year. And it would be great if you can, make us understand more about the foundation, your contributions towards it, and what are the latest updates that you guys are working on.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, I've just volunteered there, right? And that's the beauty of that organization. Everybody is a volunteer. It's right. It is like a think tank, including people, Nandan Nilekani, Sharad Sharma, who's been a scientist, and right, the people who started it. But the idea is to get people who are associated with the India industry and doing their day jobs elsewhere to contribute towards India's technology sort of development, right? And that's where a lot of people participate, right? And I've just been playing a role mainly on the digital public infrastructure, right? That's where people must be aware what we call as India stack, right? So in India, while digital transformation was gradually coming in, as it would anyway, in 2015 is when the government announced the Digital India program, right? Where the intent of that program was that at the grassroots levels, right, the lowest of lowest people should benefit out of digital technology, right? And there has been a very focused and concerted effort towards building India's digital public infrastructure, as they call it, right? DPI, where this technology is mostly open technology which will be used to deliver public services and for other purposes. So in India stack, as we know it, comprises of 3 layers. One is the identity layer, which commonly everybody knows as Aadhaar, right? So it is a digital identity for all of us. That is to manage how the people move about in the country, right? Once you have a digital identity, you are seamless you can be identified wherever you go, right? So that was the philosophy. So Aadhaar is the identity layer of DPI. Then you have the payments, right? And today everybody knows UPI is sort of ubiquitous, right? Without UPI, nothing happens. Payments don't happen, right? So that was again a conscious decision taken that, hey, we need to build this payments network, which even the common person can, with a mobile, can use, right? It was with that thinking PCI built, and right now it is everywhere. And the third layer is data.
Okay.
Right. So again, we all have problems of people calling us, right? Random calls, people selling this, right? So that has been a problem. It is not going to go away. But the big concern was, I am sharing so much. There is my data lying with banks, my bank statements, this thing, right? I don't have any control over it. If I want to go and take a loan from another bank, right, with whom I don't do the banking, he's going to ask me bank statement, show me or this, that, right? All this information they're going to ask, which I'm going to furnish it in physical format. But if there was a way, with my consent, this data is available to that entity to whom I'm going, they can use that data, analyze my credit history, and give me a loan, right? So the data sharing between entities to make it more secure and with consent
and seamless
is what was the intent of that data layer, right? And that's where the account aggregators have come up, and just over a year and a half it has become again so prevalent. Almost everybody is so you can use that for just aggregating all my bank statements and showing me a single view of my net worth, or you can use that to give me credit, extend credit. Especially you see all this kirana shops and all, right, where we just scan our UPI. That becomes a source, that information becomes a source for them to get a loan, a working capital loan or a short-term loan, because that data can be shared with a bank. They can see, okay, this guy has this much cash flow coming in on a daily basis, I can extend so much amount of loan, right? So that democratizing of data it doesn't matter who you are, whether you are a billionaire or whether you are just a small guy, your data is in your control. That is the purpose of that data layer, right? And that is now being extended to AI, and they are saying that how can, like if IRCTC, for example, has so much of, we travel by train, right? So our travel history is there. Now, if somebody wants to build a machine learning model using that data, right, they can't just access IRCTC data. But if IRCTC is willing to share that data in an anonymous form, it has to be done in a controlled, secure manner, so that it cannot be de-anonymized, it cannot be sold to somebody else or misused. So that is the framework of sharing data between entities, is what again the data layer is working on. So there is personal data and aggregate data. There are two areas where the data. So these are the three layers of the India stack.
Yeah.
And that we have all seen how, because of Aadhaar and because of UPI, how things have transformed in India in the last 5-6 years, right?
Like I would like to highlight like two very important points where people will not realize how it has really affected them. But like you mentioned, whether it's someone who's a billionaire or someone who's at the bottom of the pyramid, like it affects everyone. Like one of the stats which I read, that the DPI, the Digital Public Infrastructure of Aadhaar, has literally enabled direct debit transfers to so many underserved people, where first if they had to like, you know, subsidize something, or they had to like directly give the benefits to like the underprivileged people, the corruption in the country would not allow that. Like somewhere there would be leakages during the distribution of these benefits. But now, because there's direct debit transfer, it directly hits your bank account. And on the other side of the spectrum, where a lot of tech companies or like multinational companies, they onboard users, right? So the onboarding cost of these companies has changed. Like earlier, it was somewhere around $20-25. And because of the Aadhaar onboarding process, that has come down to like around 20 cents. So that's the difference in cost saving that has happened just because of India Stack. So it's a very important tool.
And I think the key to this is the way it has been architected. And Mac is a master of architecture, but the core principle that was thought through was to keep the design minimalistic. Right? So don't over-engineer and try to build everything around that ecosystem. So when you look at Aadhaar, all that it is you take biometrics and 5-6 data points: your name, your address, your age, or date of birth,
parents'
right? That's all that it is intended to store, and that's all does it store. It doesn't care where you are using it, right? What it has in turn has done is provided a set of APIs, right, which you can call that API with your Aadhaar number, or a substitute of a proxy for your Aadhaar number, because oftentimes people talk about, "Hey, my Aadhaar number, it's getting leaked." So they have built security layers over it over a period of time. But these APIs is what anybody can consume and sort of build into their workflow, right? You talked about user onboarding. There are other such assets that under the India stack that are there that are not often talked about, like DigiLocker. If most of us now have a DigiLocker, our Aadhaar is by default is available through the DigiLocker. But you can also store your other documents, such as your driving license, right? And through APIs, these documents can be accessed, right?
Marks card.
Right? Then there is e-signature, right? Where you can have a digital signature and you don't need to do a physical signature. Now, if I combine an Aadhaar authentication with a DigiLocker with an e-signature, I have sort of been able to automate my entire onboarding. So, which can happen in a 5-minute time frame rather than having to go physically give documents. So that's where the cost benefit has really come, right?
It's beautiful.
And it is possible because it has been designed in a very minimalistic way. You build standards and APIs which people can consume and let them innovate, right? And that's where the private sector, even UPI, the mechanism is very simple. Yeah, your mobile is linked to a UPI ID, which is linked to your bank account.
Yeah.
Now, what NPCI's framework provides is just the last leg movement of money. All the innovation is happening on the PhonePe and GPays and
the private players.
Right? The private players, right? So that's how India's other key factor is the way it has kept the public infrastructure public, but let the private sector really innovate around it. That has really made it grow so fast and get adopted so fast.
Yeah.
Great summary.
Amazing.
I think, thank you for sharing
There is
that.
one interesting aspect to it. Okay, this is not, why is India number one in this? In America, this hasn't happened.
Correct.
I lived there for so many years. They have got a social security number, which is not linked to your address, because Americans don't have address by definition. They don't have the concept of permanent address. They say, okay, you are a person, you could live anywhere. We don't care where you live. Because there is my big brother watching me. That concern in America is too much. Now with this, the concern in India is coming. Arey, government knows where I am going. Government knows everything about me now. So I buy this little chai from this corner store. Then I have a dinner at whatever, the biggest restaurant, Astoria, Waldorf or something in New York. Government knows everything about me now. Is that good? So that's the part where their data protection comes into picture. What to divulge to whom?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that, but that's a hairy piece of, because litigations will come across it.
Yeah.
Why is government looking at my payment to this, say for example, I have a affair outside, I pay that other affairee some money, government is going to see.
Yeah.
They don't want it.
So, one interesting issue we are facing worldwide right now is deep fakes. Recently, we came across some videos of actors being impersonated. Even our politicians spoke about it. And worldwide, they've been talking about using AI correctly, not misrepresenting your face. And, people of power using their image and having a fake hate speech can lead to several issues. Any take on that, sir? How can this be prevented? We also need white angels to not let this happen in the first place.
At the end, there's very little one can do technologically to prevent it, because technology has evolved it and it is letting it happen. Right? At the end, it is a question of ethical, right? There has to be an element of being ethical and whether you want to do it. But if somebody wants to do it, they will go ahead and do it, right?
So think about it. Image processing has become, let's just call it like, your image has gone now, how many? 12 megapixels, nothing nowadays. You guys are talking about 100 megapixels, something of this kind. That gives you a huge amount of fine, and the tools have evolved to be able to touch that scene. So I can convert, for example, Tina Turner into Deepika Padukone in no time, okay? For example, okay? By doing that. And now I stitch it so nicely that only a very, what you call it as, a person looking pixel by pixel may be able to identify it. It's a great job. It's like impersonating a painting. Like if I take a Rembrandt painting or something and draw a beautiful painting out of it, और सिर्फ मोनालिसा को मूछ लगाया, for example. Oh, that's a great deep fake. But again, the point is, we used to have deep fakes all the time before. There used to be dummies in the movies, right?
Yes.
Amitabh Bachchan doesn't do those 3 somersaults. Somebody maybe he does, I don't know, but in general, I hope he did not do that. Okay. Or Rajnikant doing his stunts.
Yeah.
Flying through the air, catching the airplane and bringing it down.
Yeah.
I'm sure dummies looked like, for me, from at least from the back angle or whatever that was Amitabh Bachchan for me.
So it was always there.
That was a deep fake, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was an approved deep fake.
Approved. Yeah.
Today is the problem is that is unapproved. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So if I say I want to approve Arun, I want to ask Arun, say, should I deep fake? And if it's, oh yes, okay, I'll put a Hemwane ka body ki usko chehra laga dunga.
Yeah.
See,
Right.
the use of this kind of fakery goes from the extreme of just treating it as a humor
Huh.
to having a nefarious intent of sort of influencing people to take some negative action, right? So there is it's a very wide spectrum, and where does it become from white to black is a line every individual has to define, right?
Yeah.
And at the most, these kind of governing bodies or the AI councils can try and define, okay, hey, you can do this or you can't do this, and then impose penalties if you're found to do this. But say if you say a pixel manipulation, right, or ability to do things at a pixel, that has so many positive things, right?
Exactly.
I mean, if you are able to find a cancer in an X-ray just because an AI could identify a tiny spot which a naked eye cannot, that's a very positive use of it, right? And then you have to compare it against these kind of cases which there are going to be people who are going to do this, right? And why only deepfake, right? Even now we are being influenced every single second in every action we do with all the Insta reels and apps or whatever ads that come into our this thing, right?
Yeah.
So where do you draw the line of, oh, this is allowable, but this is not allowable? That is where I think is a big question out there.
It's a big question. Like there's no black or white answer at the moment because it's such a new technology that's developing. Like even if you see the way Chat GPT was like a year ago and versus now, like the performance is insane. But like talking about these AI models and like these AI tools, the growth in AI, I want to touch upon like what's your take on data centers? Because you see right now nobody's talking about like the role of data centers in AI because AI models in general consume a lot of energy. So now does India have to prepare itself for this AI wave by also developing huge amount of data centers in the country? What's your take on that?
Data, you know what? Quantification of this data is very difficult. Okay, most of it comes in free form. Like your simplest form is when you type some kind of a note in your Facebook or Instagram or some kind of comment you make. The complex one is when you actually say something in a language that you don't understand. Like I speak something in Tamil which you have no clue about, but this is completely flaming you. Now that's when the language repositories, their models will come into picture and that data bed becomes huge. But if you say, I'm just going to happy with English and whatever, Hindi, then I can give those other languages I don't understand. Okay. So the data is AI keeps on learning. What is AI? So you teach it first time, and then if it doesn't find an answer, you can augment the information it has. For example, a person with a beard, is he Harsha? No, must be Darshan. First AI. Now suddenly I go over beard. Is it Harsha? No. Is it Darshan? No. I don't know who it is. Tell me. Makarand. Okay. Next time I know. Third choice. This is how AI grows. In short, very simple terms.
Yeah.
So you feed this information upfront so that it can do a lot of what you call it as a best guess analysis. So let's say if I say give enough data that proves that people who wear green shirts like black coffee, for example. Then if you come into my restaurant and say green shirt, usko
Black coffee.
give him black coffee. Majority people, I have seen that in this 1 million sample, this seems to work for 90%, is going to work for him. And it works. And he's so happy that AI did my job for him. It's our data that's inferencing is very nice. Okay, and the speed of computation has gone exponentially, and that's why it's possible. Was it not possible 30 years ago? It was possible, but you had to do manual search and would have taken days to figure out that green shirt wearers like coffee.
Yeah.
That kind of weird analytics you can do.
Yeah.
Sometimes most of it is useless, but it's at least entertaining.
Yeah.
And to your point of data centers or physical devices where this data will eventually reside, it is all dependent on what again the government and say okay, what has to reside within our country and what
Outside premises.
Otherwise, yeah, if it can go anywhere, who cares, right?
Yeah.
Cloud, we don't care. But then certain data, even if it is cloud, it has to be on an India located data center. Then yes, then the data center has to be
But
in India.
what's the meaning of sitting in India data center?
Yeah.
If I can see it on my browser sitting in Zanzibar, it's already gone to Zanzibar.
Correct.
What's the big deal?
Hmm.
But we have the data center in India. And then what? You're going to lock it up and not let the data go outside? That's not possible. So I don't understand. I don't know. It's some kind of bricks and mortars issue here. My asset should be with me, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The real asset is not that hard disk. The data inside the hard disk is the tangible asset, really,
Yeah.
Right.
which is used by everyone.
Yeah.
You know?
And this conversation started with the IT industry revolution, also about Arun talking about the India stack. One thing that we didn't speak about was the trend that was happening last year, metaverse and blockchain. And have you worked on any blockchain
Yeah,
projects?
blockchain is a good concept, and it is not a new concept.
Okay.
It's a very old concept. They used to be called immutable records in the old days.
Okay.
Okay, we are talking about 93, 94 time frame. We're 30 years back. Technology, not technology. If you want to call it technology, it's not even a technology really. But anyway, it's an idea that if I've recorded data, I make sure that I can immediately find out if it has been tampered with.
Mhm.
That's it. Okay,
Okay.
and if it is changed, let's say somebody changes the name from A to B. Okay, then he says A was changed to B. There's an audit trail kept on the side. A was changed to B. It used to be A earlier. Okay, that explains blockchain
That's
Okay.
all.
fundamentally. Okay, so how did we do it in the earlier days? We said A, make a copy of A, change it. We have the old copy. You just remember that this was the old copy.
Mhm.
Okay, so that is the blockchain. So the blockchain, the second part of it is what it happens is that when you say, in case of Bitcoin or Ethereum or one of those currencies, they say, for example, Arun has 100 Bitcoins. Okay, let's assume that Arun starts with 100 Bitcoins. Okay, he wants to say give 50 to Harsh. Now, somebody has to validate that he has 50 Bitcoins in his account to start with.
Yes.
Who does validate it? In case of banks, the bank, in case of normal money,
Yeah.
bank validates it. Okay. In case of Bitcoin, there are we are all sitting here. We are all here,
Validating
Bitcoin miners or what you call it.
Yeah.
We say yes, Arun has the money. Arun has the money. More than 50% say Arun has the money.
Then the
Life is okay.
Mhm.
Then Arun transfer 50 to you. Harsh has 50. Arun has 50, and everybody waits a copy of the new record.
So Arun having 50 is known because it is recorded in a
Ledger.
publicly
Available ledger,
ledger,
which is
yeah.
copied to everybody's machine.
Yeah.
Now that's the data bloat that happens there.
Yeah.
If there are 1,000 machines, this replicated 1,000 times, and only 501 have to say yes. So if it's a smaller circle, let's say I've got a 15 computer blocks, I have to only hack 8 computers to get my answer right.
Mhm.
And the only complexity is that the 500 people cannot say yes directly. They have to solve
Validate
that security
exactly.
key, right? Which is the compute intensive piece.
Yes.
So because at the end you are expecting some reward as.
Correct.
So if I am able to validate that Arun has 50, I will get 0.5 or something,
Right.
right? So because of that, you are putting compute resources to be able to validate that. That is what the mining is all about.
So the immutable report and audit trail, yes, we do it all the time for the banks. Does it have to be blockchain? I would say no. I don't want this consensus voting here. I want one party voting. I want to say bank, Is the money existing safe? Yes, he has the money. I don't want people voting for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if their records are compromised, I'll get a wrong answer.
Mm.
Again, other side is that, but what if your safe is compromised? It's get wrong answer anyway. So nobody wins. But I would say this is more complicated, and it is suited for Bitcoin like thing where they want to track transactions and there's no backing currency anyway. I don't know what's going to happen to it. Government starts taxing it suddenly.
Yeah, a very interesting perspective for sure.
Because like there are a lot of use cases people have tried, but you can't. So far, none have really become like an exchange. Like Australia Stock Exchange said, there will be a blockchain-based settlement, right? So all the settlement is tracked through the blockchain. After I think spending billions of dollars, they have shelved that project and are going for a TCS settlement system.
Because they say Arun ke paas share hai kya? If he has the share, he can sell it. I don't want people to vote. Yes, he has shares. That's not correct. Because one authority. And that's the point against blockchain. And also digital rupee that they wanted to use blockchain. I think your guys might be. What do you call it?
CBDC.
Your
iSpirit.
iSpirit. You should be able to say that please don't use blockchain for digital rupee. यदि इसको 4 रुपए दिया, I gave 5 rupees to चाय वाला, वो सब digital record में उनका data ही भरते, जिंदगी भर data collect करते रहेंगे.
It's not really taken off that because I mean the RBI targets have not really been met. If you see.
Yes, I think at the retail level, it's certainly not. They have introduced it as a proof of concept kind of. Certain banks have been, we get messages, right? You have been
pre-launch.
It's like a pre-launch. It's more suitable for more wholesale transactions, right? At the end, because a lot of people say that because of UPI, that is also digital. Why do I need a digital currency at a retail level, right? But it is from a economic level, it is like bank issuing digital currency without having to print notes. Right, so eventually, over a period of time, it will happen that if bank was printing 100,000 crores every year, it will say print only 70,000 crores and 30,000 crores will be in digital currency. Right, that is how it will evolve eventually if it picks up. But it is still at very early.
No, but again, UPI is competing with it.
Correct.
Like at least at a retail level, it is.
No, I mean, I was reading one of the concerns for CBDC that they can program the token to. Like, for example, they identify me as a person who is unhealthy and they want to make me healthy. So they can identify me with my Aadhaar number and say that this Aadhaar number related jo bhi bank account hai, don't make him spend at like unhealthy junk food places. So every time I go at like, because it's CBDC's program.
Privacy, invasion of privacy.
Exactly.
I want to get fat. It's my problem. What's your problem?
So that's one of the concerns.
I know. That's a very, should government control your actions? This is the question.
No, but I don't know. So there is where that disparity seems that on one hand, there is a view that it's trying to control, but on the other hand, it's also trying to disaggregate things that you should have control over this thing, right?
Right.
It is not the government's business to get into these issues. Right? The private sector can come up with anything that they want. And if I'm willing to give my record,
take it and
do it, right? So if I'm willing to give my insurance company consent that, hey, keep tracking my blood pressure, I will wear your device. It is my choice, right? And they will track it for 360 days. If my blood pressure is normal, my next insurance premium, they'll say, I'll give you 25% rebate. If that kind of a use case evolves in the private sector, so be it. There are people willing to put a device on their hand and get monitored, right? Or it can turn, hospital says you wear this device. If ever I find a spike in your heart rate, you will have an ambulance ready as an emergency. That is a good use case. If somebody wants to subscribe to the service, so be it. But at the end, the choice has to be the individuals, right? If I am willing to wear that device and let my data be monitored by somebody.
Yeah, I mean, Harsh is wearing one right now. And
what is that? There's the new nifty thing, huh?
Fitness tracker,
I think all our Indian cricketers wear the same brand. What is it called?
Whoop.
Whoop. क्या करता है वो?
Gift मिला है, pen लिया है.
It's like a health mode, the same
So it tracks your calories, stress, steps, sleep.
Sab kuch, basically.
And then it has GPT in the app. of this device. So there's an app that tells me that have I slept on time, have I woken
But
up
how
on
does
time.
it know? You know it, no? You slept on time.
No, it records, right? When the
अच्छा,
body goes.
इतना पिया कि पता भी नहीं चला
हाँ.
कितने बजे सो गया. ठीक.
So, you spoke about so many use cases, and we ourselves as a company have evolved from launching our MVP with the prepaid card, and now we're working on an exciting digital banking transformation with a company. So, what's your take on all these digital stack that the government has supported to these private startups, upcoming startups like ourselves? It's giving us a lot of innovative ideas to cater to the end users, right? And Maxo is guiding us with all these infrastructure developments. So, how do you see the youth now working with these fintech as a use case? So, like, are you using any fintech apps? How do you bank? Because you've seen all the walks of life from living in America to India without cash. Yeah.
I use my ICICI bank, okay, because that thing works, okay. That's the only saving grace. Otherwise, any bank is, I would, in my opinion, the same bank. But I've been banking with them since 1999 or 98, and they love me, I love them, life is good, okay?
Yeah.
And they don't bounce my checks and things like that, okay? If it comes to that. But apart from that, I use nowadays for last 7-8 years, ever since I moved back here, the UPI is a big thing, okay? It beats America or anywhere in Europe, it's not. But at the same time, we don't have this tap and go concept anywhere in India. Like if you're traveling in London Metro or San Francisco Metro, just tap the card and go on. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have this whole prepaid cards, but preloaded access devices or something, right?
No.
Those kind of. Right?
So you go to London, buy that Orca,
I studied there.
Dolphin or what, some kind of
Oyster card. Yeah.
Some kind of animal. Yeah, that card. So you buy that card, you put 25 pounds on it, tick, tick, tick.
Or even Apple Pay works.
Apple Pay
Samsung
works.
Pay
Even
works.
I think a lot of
this
that's where India public transport is there. It's coming up, but easy access to public transport is still. I mean, using technology in public transport is still missing. Interoperability. I buy that one card, whether I go by metro or I go by the bus or I go by any other means, the same thing works. So that is a level of evolution.
Why hasn't it started? Like, just curious. I mean,
I don't know. There's also one more thing. Think about it. You travel on the highways, use that FASTag, right?
Yeah.
Why does you have to pay money in advance? Why doesn't it debit when you pass? Who is accumulating the interest on the money that's sitting in FASTag account? Right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, they made us, everybody has to put 500 rupees to start with.
Yeah.
Even if we don't go anywhere. That means 500 rupees sitting in somebody's account who is earning interest on that. It's like America.
Yeah.
We just drive through. We don't even stop.
Yeah.
They take the photo of the number plate. The bill is automatically sent. Your credit card is on record. Money is gone. Simple. But it is when you use, not advance.
Yeah.
Right.
And I love the comparisons that you've shared. And what's your take on branchless banking? Do you visit bank branches anymore, sir?
Not anymore.
Not
Unless
anymore.
they want me to come and sir, sign your Aadhaar card, KYC has to be done. That's when once a year or once in 2 years I have to go there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't have to go there.
Yeah.
So your point about how adoption, right? Like, and even the features that we are building. When I was leaving the corporate job and getting into a startup, right? It was the first time I meticulously did a budget. I went through my bank statement 6 months and tried to figure out how much I spend on household things, how much I spent on what loan, if there is any outstanding. I did that. That was the first time in my life I did. Otherwise, salary aata hai, you spend it, right? And kuch bachta hai, you save it and this thing. So that is a thought process, right? In India, when it comes to personal finance, people still don't have that mindset of budgeting for their own expenses.
In
right?
advance.
In advance. People still live paycheck to paycheck, right? Paisa aaya, 15 din mein 80-90% gone, and then there is hardly left for any of this thing, right? So that is a behavior that at least the intent of our app is to be able to allow people to easily be able to budget their money and track, okay, at the end of the month, this is how my money is being spent. Okay, so I do have some savings every month wherever I want to invest, right? So the mindset of first spending, then figuring out, we want to change that by saying first budget.
Yeah.
right? You have certain pieces which you cannot avoid, so you budget for that. You save some or invest some, whatever you want to do, and then rest you do whatever you want to do, right?
Yeah.
So that's the mindset we are trying to do. The second thing that, again, right, at least our intent, and Harsh will agree with that, is to make this available to people beyond the tier 1 and tier 2 cities, right? So now the digital penetration is so huge, right? And people in the smaller towns and cities are becoming upwardly mobile. They are getting better salaries, better opportunities, right? And that financial behavior is what we want to inculcate in them early. Even the youth, right? The current youth, the loyalty towards a brand, like Max is, he's always been with one bank all his life, but that is missing in most people, right? You are driven by some reward coming here, you would try that, right? It's either by rewards or by choice. You don't want to stick to one particular brand.
There's so many
right?
options.
Yeah, so many options. So in that context, how to give them something that makes them want to use the app again and again. It's what sort of really drives our thought process as to why will they come to you every time? Why will they use your banking service when everybody is a bank out there, right?
Correct.
So,
and to be fair, we also launched with such speed and agility with Arun that we also decided that, okay, we know that there's certain, UPI was missing right now, and we're going to be launching that as well. So we realized that the need of consumers in every different profession is different. You have lived paycheck to paycheck, and Sir has lived paycheck to paycheck. And then there are also people who have abundance and they want to invest better, save and secure their family.
yeah. So today there is this whole gig economy. People have side jobs. People do
And can this same idea, Sir, be resonated with the work life, because you worked at Microsoft and also worked in startups before? How does this play from a business point of view when you were deciding the budgets of the company? And
so Microsoft, we didn't have the problem.
Okay.
The money with the huge deep coffers. So you say I need 100 engineers, 100 man-years. Okay, that's it. I need 50 computers. Okay, sign for it. You already have the signing power, whatever.
Yeah.
So particular level, you get a certain signing power.
Yeah.
You can just sign and order the thing. Nobody asks you questions.
Yeah.
Beyond certain, I don't know, 2 million ke upar, you have to ask a VP or something.
$2 million.
Yeah, you have to ask a VP or something of this kind. But that budget was not a constraint here. How many computers do you want? 20? Okay, let's get 22 just in case 2 break down or something. That kind of, affluence was there in those kind of companies. But when you go to a startup, we have got 10 computers, we don't have enough money. So you know what, let's get 5 low-level computers. We'll give them to administration testing. Dev skill, we got only 5. And now still are little bit of... So that was the biggest crunch. Hiring people was another very big concern in our job, because in India is something which I call, people don't like when I say that, it's called as a marriage market. Okay? If you have the sticker of Infosys, Wipro, TCS, you find a suitable mate very easily on indiamatrimony.com or whatever that is. Okay? Otherwise you don't find it.
Yeah.
So that big name is one. They also give bigger salaries because their customers are paying them in dollars.
That price arbitrage,
Yes.
Yeah.
So for a startup company to match the salaries, and I'm not even talking about salaries of Microsoft India, Oracle India, Google India. I'm talking about TCS, Wipro salaries or persistent salaries. Even to match that for a startup is very difficult.
Correct.
And there are 2 types of startups. Right? The real startups who have just started as real crunch of capital.
Yeah.
Versus funded startups, which are at the other expense. They are really well funded. They can afford to pay much higher salaries than even the TCS and this thing.
So,
right? So
attrition becomes a problem.
Correct.
Yeah. Because people learn here technology that we are trying, jump quickly, get double salary and get married.
Yeah.
Okay.
My take is being frugal both in your personal life and is crucial, right? Because saving for a rainy day will always
even
help.
in the big companies, like at least the services companies, although there is a lot of resources available, there was always any project had a profitability target. because customer is only paying you this much money. You just can't put unlimited resources and say, yeah, karo, right? So every project manager or whoever had a target that you cannot go below 15% margins or something, because there are other costs that get added, your infrastructure cost, shared infrastructure, all of that. So even though there is money available at a project level, you have to be frugal and manage it properly. Right? In a startup, it goes one level above, right? And that's where big decisions, even technology and product decisions, become impacted. Hey, if you have to build this, I will need 5 developers for the next 3 months. Only then you can do it, right? So if you don't have that kind of resources, you have to say, okay, let's build a smaller piece, something. Let's try the market. So that's where this whole philosophy of try and fail early, right? You build something, an MVP, see if it is getting accepted, then you scale, because you have limited resources.
Correct. I mean, you mentioned frugality, right? Frugality is so important because I feel the concept in India is a little different, where here companies are celebrated when they raise money, right? When you raise money, it's celebrated. But when you're raising money, it's not that you're making money. Exit is when you make money. When you're raising money, essentially it's a loan you've taken from the investors, and then you have to return it back and grow the company. So that mindset, like in startups, is very important. Now it's changing because of the funding winter, because people are realizing that we cannot just be raising money continuously just based on our customer base. We have to raise money based on profitability, and also the product has to be good in itself, where you have to treat the money that you have raised also as something that you have to juice out the most out of it. Be frugal, make sure that you don't go overspending on whatever wants. You have to spend on your needs. And I think it applies not just like to small startups, even like the well-funded startups or like, MNCs.
And, to come to a closing point, sir, now I also know you're teaching schools, right? And how is that being in the classroom now?
With 8th grade students, that's so much fun.
What do you teach them, sir?
I teach them Java programming. Actually, I teach them algorithms.
Okay.
And we have used Java as a language to manifest the algorithms.
Okay.
I could have used C, C++, C Sharp, Python, whatever you wanted. But I chose Java because our school has Linux machines. Some kids have Macs, some kids have PCs at home. So that one version of NetBeans and Java bundle works identical in all three. That's the only thing. That's why I chose Java.
So you're teaching 8th graders about softwares like Python and all these things. How do you explain like an 8th standard student about Python?
See, Python is a language, just another language, right? I always tell them that the idea of an algorithm is like a poem or a story that is in your mind. If I tell you this story in English, Marathi, French, Kannada, the story remains the same. So the idea is the algorithm. Okay. Now, Python by itself is just a language. The infrastructure around Python is the libraries that have been built for Python are very powerful. Okay. By language itself, just a language. It's like we say English is a very rich language. Why? Because there's huge amount of literature written in it. By itself, is it different than Konkani? No, just a language. To convey my thoughts.
Widely accepted.
Widely accepted. So Python is one thing where it's like you can pick up pieces of the shell, put them together, and call yourself a programmer. Okay. You have no clue what those pieces do, apart from the fact that, if I put a pipe here and if I put a pipe here, water flows. Then I call myself a plumber. No, you're not a plumber. You're not even frankly speaking, you're not a hydraulics engineer. You're a plumber. And remain that way. So the example that I always give is that Python programmers, as we call it today, I have interviewed more than 100 of them. All of them were like this. Nobody could tell me how to sort, but they could tell me how to do this. It's like you opening a shop to say, I'm going to sell you idli sambar from tomorrow. Okay. Then you say, okay, go to Vaishali, get idli. Go to Vadeshwar, get sambar. Go to this corner guy, get chutney. I present it to you.
That's Python.
That's Python.
So the way you explain things with so simplicity is
the
beautiful.
point is that if idli is bad, chutney is bad, or sambar is bad, you get the flake.
So that's the beauty of Mac, of simplifying things, right? That's why he's a great teacher. We talked about simple architectures, right? So
Yeah.
Mac has this philosophy that if you want to buy mirchi from the corner shop, you would rather use a bicycle rather than building a truck to buy something like that, right?
Yeah.
So it is the way he explains things is something that even a 8th grader would understand, right?
So that's what I say. So when you present as your solution, you are responsible for all the parts inside it.
Yeah.
Because you're selling idli, chutney, sambar. You're not selling the individual pieces.
Correct.
Yeah,
And the customer are going to hit you. You cannot say, oh, idli was made by Vaishali. He said, I don't care. You could have made it yourself.
Yeah.
And that's when the problem arises because they don't understand how that idli is made at all.
Yeah, and this is true even for our business,
Yeah.
right? When we are offering a service to the end customer and we behind are relying on third-party partners, the end customer doesn't care if the bank was down or settlement didn't happen or whatever. They're going to catch you that I am your customer.
Correct.
Right? And unless we know how to manage all these pieces efficiently, we build our processes strong, we understand it. We cannot say that, hey, I don't know what
I
is
don't
happening. Right? You are accountable for the whole end-to-end piece. Right?
So this is what I'm telling the development team, right? Okay,
Yeah.
you're using this piece off the shelf today because you have a time crunch or whatever that is. Okay, for now it's okay, but you have to really understand that piece and be able to replace it with your own code at one point in time. And not one point in time in 100 years from now, 1 or 2 years from now.
Yeah.
Until meantime, we can keeping on Vaishali idli, but we have to learn how to make idli ourselves at one point in time.
Got it.
Then our profitability also goes up because we can sell this idli to others now.
Right.
That's the important thing. And we don't depend
Great.
on others to make idli for us.
Yeah. So I think I'd like to thank Maxa for, coming along with Arun and giving us this time. And, thank you so much for coming on this
Most welcome.
episode.
It was a pleasure.
And really appreciate you both giving us your insights and how your life shaped up and how, talk all things about technology, financial technology. And I think let's wrap it up. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you, Arun.
I mean, the experience, it's
Yeah.
at the end, right? What I personally believe is there is so much only you can teach in terms of real theory. It's all about learning from experiences.
6-month delay in a 1-year project, which is bad, right? It's horrible. Look, anyway, at the end of 6 years, what do you learn from this? I बोला कि ठीक है. So this is the thing I underestimated. This is the thing I underestimated. 4 thing बोला. Good, very good. Next time, make new mistakes. If you make this again, I will fire you. Make new mistakes, I will give you a raise. Next time I have a new mistake, actually give me a raise. ये पहले नहीं नया है, क्या करूँ?